Inside a silent museum, a security camera picked up something no one expected.
Clearly a reflection from the ripples on the water. Some believe that the creators of the video...
Well, Ron Viet claims, and he also has this picture that he shared. Apparently he claimed...
The Euphrates River is no longer what it once was, and the world can feel it. The cradle of civilization is shifting, exposing things long buried, things never meant to be seen again. Waters freezing, where deserts once scorched. The riverbed splitting open like a living wound. Fire rising from ground that should be silent. Objects appearing, then vanishing. Sounds captured on record, only to be dismissed, erased, denied. Is this all coincidence? Or a warning written into the land itself? Is nature unraveling before us, or is prophecy quietly stepping out of the shadows? I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth. Joel 2:30. If you sense something aligning, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. In the upper reaches of the Euphrates River, something deeply unsettling has begun to unfold. A region long defined by arid landscapes and scorching summers was suddenly struck by unusual, heavy snowfall. White blankets covered hills and riverbanks that, by historical norms, should never have seen such conditions. Temperatures plunged far below expected ranges, and then came the moment that stopped observers cold. Sections of the Euphrates froze solid. This was not a thin surface glaze or a fleeting overnight frost. In multiple locations, the water hardened enough to visibly halt the river's flow. Locals filmed ice stretching across channels that had carried civilizations for thousands of years. Elders in nearby villages admitted they had never witnessed anything like it, nor had their parents or grandparents. Historical records mention droughts, floods, and seasonal fluctuations, but widespread freezing of the Euphrates remains extraordinarily rare. What makes this event even more troubling is that it did not occur in isolation. At the same time, thousands of miles away, the United States was being battered by relentless winter storms. Massive blizzards swept across states unaccustomed to sustained snow. Arctic air plunged deep into southern regions. Power grids strained, transportation collapsed, and entire communities were brought to a standstill by cold of unusual duration and intensity. Meteorologists described the pattern as anomalous. Climatologists called it extreme variability. Two distant regions, vastly different geographies, yet one shared signature: cold, behaving out of bounds. Scientists point to shifting jet streams, polar vortex disruptions, and broader climate instability. These explanations describe how such events might happen, but not why they are clustering in this precise season, nor why they are striking symbolic locations with such force. The Euphrates is not just another river. It is one of the earliest markers of human civilization, named in ancient texts as a boundary of history itself. When it behaves unpredictably, people notice. Across social media and regional news outlets, comparisons began to surface. Screens split between frozen river footage from the Middle East and blizzard chaos from North America. Commentators asked whether the planet was entering a new phase of imbalance or whether these were signals embedded in a longer narrative humanity has forgotten how to read. Long before satellites and climate models, there were warnings of a time when nature itself would testify. There shall be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. Luke 21:11. Ice on the Euphrates. Snow where heat once ruled. A world watching, uneasy, as boundaries, geographic, climatic, and perhaps prophetic, begin to blur. As the ice loosens its grip and the cold retreats, the story does not return to normal, it darkens. As water levels fall, long stretches of the riverbed are laid bare. The exposed ground does not settle quietly. Cracks begin to spread, branching outward like fractures in bone, splitting the earth where water once flowed without interruption. Entire sections collapse inward, forming deep fissures that had been hidden for centuries beneath mud and silt. Then comes the moment that defies reason. From the dry ground, flames suddenly erupt. Not brush fires, not sparks carried by wind, but brief, violent bursts of fire pushing upward, igniting, flickering, and vanishing almost as quickly as they appear. Witnesses capture the phenomenon on shaky phone footage. A glow, a flare, then darkness again. No fuel source is visible. No pipelines are reported in those locations. No official explanation is offered. Local residents describe the heat as coming from below, not from the sun above. They speak of warm air rushing upward through the cracks, of the ground radiating warmth even after the flames disappear. Some report a sulfur-like smell. Others say the earth vibrates faintly before the fire breaks through. Geologists suggest the possibility of trapped gases released by tectonic stress, methane or other flammable pockets igniting when exposed to oxygen. On paper, it sounds plausible, yet these explanations struggle to account for the precision and timing of the eruptions, or why they appear only after the river retreats, as if something sealed beneath the water has been uncovered. To the people who live there, the concern is simpler and more unsettling. They ask, what else lies beneath the riverbed? What pressure is building below ground? And why these events are happening now? Ancient texts often describe the earth itself responding in the final stages of history, opening, groaning, releasing what has long been restrained. Fire rising from dry ground is not just a geological curiosity in those accounts, it is a sign of exposure, of boundaries being crossed. First, the river freezes when it should not. Now, as it dries, the ground answers with fire. If this is merely nature, it is behaving in ways rarely seen. And if it is something more, then the pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. Stay with us and keep watching, because what the Euphrates reveals next may be even harder to explain. As the river recedes and the land continues to expose what was long concealed, reports emerge of something far more unsettling, a discovery made not on the surface, but beneath the Euphrates itself. According to multiple independent accounts, a small group of local explorers entered a newly exposed cave system along the lower reaches of the Euphrates River. The cave had been inaccessible for generations, sealed behind layers of sediment and water pressure. Inside, carved stone walls narrowed into a chamber that appeared deliberately constructed, not naturally formed. At the center of that chamber sat an object none of them expected to find: a sealed chest. Witnesses described it as rectangular, proportioned with unusual precision, and crafted from materials that did not match modern construction. Its surface, they claimed, bore symmetrical detailing and angular elements that immediately evoked ancient descriptions found in sacred texts. Some went further, quietly noting its resemblance to how the Ark of the Covenant is described, not as a claim, but as an unsettling comparison that could not be ignored. No one reported opening the chest. No one claimed to touch it. But footage was recorded. Within days, fragments of video began circulating online, brief clips showing stone corridors, a dimly lit chamber, and the unmistakable outline of a chest resting on a raised base. Then, just as suddenly, everything disappeared. Videos were deleted or removed without explanation. Accounts sharing the material were taken offline. Witnesses stopped speaking, some retracting their statements, others vanishing entirely from public view. When questions reached local authorities, the response was uniform: denial. No cave, no discovery, no investigation. The silence that followed proved louder than the reports themselves. Researchers familiar with ancient Near Eastern traditions note that many sacred objects were intentionally hidden during times of invasion and collapse, sealed away in caves, buried beneath rivers, entrusted to the earth itself. Whether this chest was symbolic, ceremonial, or something else entirely, remains unknown. What troubles observers is not the lack of confirmation, but the speed and completeness with which the story was erased. In Scripture, there is a recurring pattern: revelation followed by restraint. Some things are shown briefly, then withdrawn, not because they are false, but because their time has not yet come. The secret things belong unto the Lord our God. Deuteronomy 29:29. If the Euphrates is revealing fragments of what was hidden, it may also be reminding the world that not everything uncovered is meant to be understood immediately. Some discoveries do not bring answers. They bring silence and the weight of what that silence implies. As events surrounding the Euphrates continue to escalate, reports emerge that are no longer confined to the earth below. They shift upward toward the sky itself. Across several regions, multiple residents independently describe witnessing a radiant presence above them. Not lightning, not aircraft, not a familiar atmospheric phenomenon. What they speak of is something overwhelmingly bright, yet silent, a presence that does not move like clouds, nor flash like storms, but simply appears commanding attention without sound. Those who claim to have seen it struggle to find words. Many say it was impossible to look at directly, forcing them to avert their eyes. Others describe an intense physical response: trembling, sudden stillness, a sense of awe mixed with fear. Phones were raised, then lowered. Some say their devices malfunctioned. Others admit they were too shaken to even try recording. What is most striking is the consistency. Witnesses who do not know one another describe the same details: a luminous form within the clouds, radiating outward, not blinding, but penetrating. No voice, no message, just presence. And then, without warning, it fades. For a brief period, accounts spread rapidly. Social platforms filled with testimonies, sketches, short written descriptions. Then, just as with earlier events tied to the Euphrates, the reports abruptly stop. Posts are removed. Threads vanish. People who spoke openly go silent or retract their statements. Official explanations reduce everything to optical illusions or rare atmospheric light refraction. Yet those explanations fail to address the most troubling element: why so many people described the same experience, and why discussion of it was quietly shut down. Throughout history, appearances in the sky have carried weight far beyond science. Ancient civilizations, prophets, and chroniclers all recorded moments when the heavens themselves seemed to respond not with chaos, but with intention. In biblical texts, divine presence is often associated not with speech, but with manifestation: light, cloud, glory that overwhelms human senses. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud. Isaiah 19:1. Whether these sightings were natural phenomena misinterpreted in an age of fear, or something far more profound, remains unanswered. What is undeniable is the pattern: revelation, reaction, and removal. If you believe these signs matter, like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us as we continue tracing what is unfolding on the earth and above it. What was reported inside the cave does not end with silence or sealed chambers. According to those who entered after the initial discovery, the stone itself began to change. Along the inner walls of the same cave system beneath the Euphrates River, witnesses describe dark streaks forming across the rock surface. At first, they appeared as damp stains, nothing unusual for underground spaces. But within hours, the moisture deepened in color, turning red. Not rust orange, not clay brown, but a deep, fluid crimson. The liquid did not drip like groundwater. It oozed, slowly emerging from hairline fractures in the stone, tracing downward paths that resembled veins. In some areas, it pooled briefly, before soaking back into the cave floor. Witnesses insist it was warm to the touch and thicker than water. The resemblance to blood was impossible to ignore. Those present reportedly debated natural explanations: mineral oxidation, iron-rich deposits, bacterial reactions. Such phenomena do exist in caves around the world. Yet what unsettled observers was the location and timing. These formations had not been documented in the cave before. They appeared only after the river receded, after the chest was reported, after the site drew attention. Samples were allegedly collected. And then, nothing. No laboratory results were released. No public geological reports followed. No official confirmation or denial addressed the red liquid directly. Instead, access to the cave was restricted. The site was labeled unsafe. Further discussion was dismissed as rumor. In ancient texts and historical records, bleeding stone is not described as a natural curiosity, but as a sign, a marker of judgment, mourning, or exposure. Civilizations across the Near East recorded moments when the land itself seemed to respond to human events, when earth and stone mirrored what words could not express. Even today, those who study symbolism note that blood, whether literal or symbolic, represents life, and the spilling of it represents consequence. What troubles researchers is not simply the color of the liquid, but the absence of transparency. In an age where every anomaly is tested, categorized, and published, the complete lack of data raises its own questions. If the explanation were simple, why withhold it? If it were complex, why not investigate openly? The cave remains sealed, the stones remain unanswered, and the image persists in the minds of those who saw it firsthand. Rock that should be lifeless, appearing to bleed, deep beneath a river long associated with the beginning of human history. If the Euphrates is revealing what was hidden, this may be one of its most disturbing disclosures, yet not because of what is seen, but because of what is left unexplained. Something begins to move, where nothing should move at all. Along shallow stretches of the Euphrates River, witnesses report perfectly circular wave patterns forming without warning. In some cases, the ripples appear on thin layers of remaining water. In others, they emerge directly on exposed stone, radiating outward as if the ground itself were disturbed from below. No wind, no falling debris, no visible source. The motion repeats slow, deliberate, unnaturally precise. Then, the sound begins. Recordings captured near these sites reveal low-frequency vibrations, pulsing beneath the range of normal hearing. Those standing nearby describe it as pressure rather than noise, a sensation felt in the chest and skull before it is recognized by the ears. Moments later, the vibration rises into something far more disturbing. Witnesses do not call it an echo. They do not describe it as wind through rock. They call it screams. Not loud, not sharp, but stretched, distorted, and layered, as if multiple voices were trapped beneath the surface, moving with the waves. Some say the sound swells and fades in rhythm with the circular motion. Others claim it intensifies when people approach, then subsides when the area is cleared. Several individuals report nausea, disorientation, and a sudden urge to flee. A few insist the sound carried emotion, fear, anguish, urgency, though no words could be identified. Instruments malfunction. Audio files distort or cut out abruptly. Engineers reviewing the clips admit the frequencies are real, but struggle to explain why they coincide with physical movement in the ground. Authorities again offer limited explanations: seismic microtremors, acoustic resonance, underground water shifts. These theories account for fragments of the phenomenon, but not the whole. They do not explain why the patterns appear only in specific locations, or why witnesses consistently describe the same auditory experience. Ancient writings describe the Euphrates not merely as a river, but as a boundary, a place of restraint. In prophetic texts, what lies bound there is not water or stone, but forces held until an appointed time. When that boundary weakens, the earth responds. Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. Revelation 9:14. Whether one interprets this literally or symbolically, the language is unmistakable. Release follows exposure. Waves without water. Sounds without bodies. Movement without cause. These reports, like the ones before them, surge briefly into public awareness, then fade into denial and dismissal. But for those who stood there, feeling the ground pulse and hearing what should not be heard, the memory does not fade. If you want to understand what happens after the waves stop, keep watching. What comes next may explain why these sounds were never meant to surface. As the waves fade and the unnatural sounds fall silent, attention turns once more to what lies beneath the Euphrates, not movement this time, but words. What was heard in vibration, some claim, was also preserved in writing long before our age was ready to listen. According to multiple converging reports, an ancient scroll was uncovered in proximity to the same cave system associated with earlier discoveries near the Euphrates River. The material was described as fragile but intact, sealed within a narrow stone recess protected from water and air. Those who claim to have seen it say the script did not belong to a single known language, but appeared to blend Hebrew, Aramaic, and a far older proto-form one some have controversially referred to as pre-flood in origin. What drew immediate alarm was not only the age of the writing, but its content. The scroll allegedly speaks of entities bound beneath the earth, restrained not by chains of metal, but by decree. It describes a fixed time of release, set long in advance, unalterable once certain conditions are met. Among those conditions, one phrase is said to repeat with emphasis: when the great river dries. The text reportedly refers to knowledge sealed from mankind, not lost, but deliberately withheld truths deemed destructive if revealed too early. It warns that the unsealing of this knowledge would not begin with enlightenment, but with judgment, disorder in nature, confusion among nations, and fear preceding clarity. Only after this reckoning, the scroll claims, would restoration follow. Scholars familiar with ancient apocalyptic literature note that this structure is consistent with early prophetic frameworks: sealing, warning, release, judgment, then renewal. What unsettles observers is how closely the alleged contents mirror both biblical and extra-biblical traditions, particularly those that associate the Euphrates with restraint and timing. No authenticated images of the scroll exist. No translations have been officially published. Institutions questioned about the matter deny any such artifact was found. Yet, as with earlier incidents, denial is paired with restriction. Access to the site was limited. Independent researchers were turned away. Mentions of the scroll quietly disappeared from online archives. Whether the scroll was genuine, misinterpreted, or deliberately suppressed remains unknown. But its reported message lingers with disturbing clarity, that certain truths were never erased, only sealed, waiting not for discovery, but for a moment the world itself would signal readiness. If the Euphrates is drying, and what was bound is stirring, then the warning hidden until the river dries may no longer be hidden at all. Piece by piece, a pattern has taken shape not in theory, but in sequence. Ice replaces water, fire replaces soil, objects appear, then vanish, sounds rise, then are denied. Individually, each event can be debated, explained away, filed under coincidence, but together they form a progression that is harder to dismiss. The Euphrates River is not behaving like a river at the end of a drought cycle. It is acting like a boundary being undone. First, it froze when logic said it should not. Then it receded, exposing what had been buried. What emerged did not bring clarity, but confusion: caves, fire, sealed objects, red-stained stone, waves without water, sounds without bodies, and words said to be hidden until this very moment. This is not chaos. It is order, just not one we are comfortable recognizing. Throughout history, warnings have rarely arrived as a single, unmistakable announcement. They come as signals, as disruptions, as repetitions that grow harder to ignore. The ancient world understood this language well. Rivers marked borders. Drying rivers marked transitions. When a boundary fails, what was restrained no longer remains hidden. The Euphrates is not just drying up. It is revealing. revealing how fragile stability truly is, revealing how thin the line is between the visible and the concealed, revealing that knowledge, once sealed, does not stay buried forever. Some will say this is fear. Others will say it is symbolism layered onto natural events. But even skeptics admit something has shifted not only in the land, but in the global mood. Unease has replaced certainty. Questions now outnumber answers. And perhaps that is the point. In Scripture, revelation is never given to satisfy curiosity. It is given to prepare, to warn before change becomes unavoidable, to call attention before silence becomes final. Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants. Amos 3-7. Whether these events are coincidence or warning depends on one question alone: are we paying attention? If you believe these signs matter, like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for staying with us through this investigation and for watching closely, as the Euphrates continues to reveal what the world was never meant to ignore.